program will begin in 1 minute.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jaime Casap.
It only took a couple of days for she was rid of me. She swore that she would be all mine.
Good morning.
Love me till the end.
Oh, I don't know. I want the music to keep playing while I'm talking. I think that would be very helpful. Good morning, everyone. I see lots of educators still walking in. I want to welcome you to this morning's keynote. My name is Jaime Casap. I'm part of the education team. I am the Google Global Education Evangelist. So my job is to stand here and talk to you about our perspective on global education, our perspective on technology, our perspective on the web, and how all these things kind of play with each other. So before I get started, I wanted to provide you some contact information. As my daughter says, email is for old people. And so I wanted to make sure that there was a way for us to keep conversations going. And so it's great when you have questions that you can ask, that I can answer and also share with others so they can see what the answers are at the same time. But also on Google+, where we can have a circle discussion and we can create groups and we're able to share information and join hangouts. And this is where I communicate a lot. This is where I post information. This is where we post announcements. This is where I share the information and things that we're working on. So this is a great way to contact. And I also write a blog on education. I got a couple of things that I'm in the middle of creating right now, but a lot of the things that I talked about last year are included in this blog on education. All right, so kind of what I want to talk about today are really three general themes. And the first is education and what it looks like today. This new generation of kids that are coming into our schools and the skills that we believe they're going to need. And then also, how does education and the web work together? And what does the future of that look like? But to get started, I always like to start with this, which is the reason why we come to sessions like this and why we come to conferences and why we're involved in education and why we have such a passion for education. And for me is because education is a silver bullet. Education can change a family's destiny in one generation. It's the fabric of the American dream, right? Get an education, work hard, and you can accomplish anything. And this is a personal story for me because I grew up as one of these kids. This is the corner of 48th Street and 10th Avenue back in the 70s. And my mother came here from Argentina. And I was born in Hell's Kitchen, New York. And I was raised by a single mother on welfare, no father, the whole 9 yards. Statistically speaking, I'm not supposed to be standing here in front of you. And because of education, I was able to disrupt that poverty, kill the cycle of poverty in just one generation. And I know this because I look at my two kids, and I think about my 11-year-old and my 20-year-old. This is the part where you're supposed to say I don't look like I have a 20-year-old. Right? And I think about their lives and how they're living today compared to my life, and they have no idea what poverty is. They have no idea what that cycle looks like. In one generation, we killed that cycle of poverty because of education. And I think about my 20-year-old who is in her second year in college. She never asked if she had to go to college. I never told her once she had to go to college. She just assumed she was going to college because I went to college. And her mother went to college. And the people in her life went to college. And she assumes she's going to graduate school because I went to graduate school. And her mother went to graduate school. And others in her life went to graduate school. She also assumes I'm paying for it, but that's a whole other problem. And that's a good problem to have, right? That's what we want. That's what we want from our families. So we can break that cycle of poverty in one generation. However, I'm a little worried about where things are today. All the social science research is showing us that the gap between the poor and the rich is actually growing. By the time a kid is 4 years old, a poor kid is 4 years old, there's an 18-month achievement gap between a poor kid and a rich kid. 6 out of 10 kids living in poverty when they're in the 4th grade can't do math at that level. 30% of kids who live in that lower income bracket even attempt to enroll in college, and only about 15% of them are graduating. So that gap is getting wider. And so I'm a little worried that we're not closing that gap quickly enough. But at the same time, I'm extremely optimistic because over the last 40 or 50 years, where you grew up, the access to resources that you had, your family background, the libraries you had access to, mattered in your education and attainment. And what we're discovering is that that's no longer true. You guys remember the Breakfast Club? I saw the Breakfast Club. Somebody just wooted the Breakfast Club at 7:30 in the morning. I just want to point that out. I remember the Breakfast Club. I saw the Breakfast Club when I was in high school. And what was fascinating about the Breakfast Club to me was the library that school had. I couldn't believe that that's what their library looked like. My library is the Columbus Library on 50th Street and 10th Avenue that 5 or 6 different schools had to share with the community. We had 4 tables in the back, and there was a pecking order as to who can sit at those tables after school, and which schools were allowed to sit at which tables. And you would try to find books, and you just didn't have access to information. And think about the world that we live in today, access to all the information is at our fingertips. And so when we think about where we are, and we think about education, it's important to understand where we came from, and it's real simple to understand how we got to where we are today, right? You know, back in the 1800s, America was just a big, giant farmer's market, right? 95% of the jobs were farm-related. We didn't need a lot of education. Then the 1900s happened, and we got into the Industrial Revolution. Still didn't need a lot of education, just a little bit. 13% of the population actually had a high school degree at the time. Then we got into the service economy after World War II, and all of a sudden we started needing some education, where we had jobs in advertising and in sales and in the entertainment world. You know, we all watch Mad Men, we know what it looked like. And about 20% of the jobs required some kind of college at that time. And it was a good thing that about 20% of the population had some college at the time. And then the 70s came, and the computer revolution. And all of a sudden, computers started taking everything over, whether it was in the manufacturing world, or in the administrative world, or in the clerical world. The computer revolution brought us unbelievable change in a very rapid fashion. And if you think about those 1950s, where 20% of the jobs required some kind of college, and you think about the jobs today, where 80% of the jobs require some kind of college, that's happened really, really fast. And think about the last 10 years. Most of us take the web for granted. How many of you, it's only 7:40 in the morning, how many of you have not been on the web today already? Think about how fast we've come. It wasn't that long ago that we used to have to call the internet on our phones, and the web would hang up on us. It was rude, and we would keep trying. And what was our reward for that? Our reward was a bunch of websites that had words to links, that had words to links. That was our reward, and we were all excited about that. And today, we complain at this conference because our 12 devices that we have in our pocket can't connect to the broadband that we have set up for the conference. That's how fast we've come. So think about this web phenomenon, where we are in the last 10 years. So from the 70s through today, and in the last 10 years, what the web's been able to do. And it makes sense that education hasn't been able to keep up. It's come too fast. And then when we think about the generation of kids that are coming into our schools, this is the world that they're growing up in. And the first thing that we have to remember is that technology is not new to this generation. A smartphone might be this marvelous device for you, but it's just a phone to a kid. And it's not even a phone. I don't think that my daughter, if I shut off her service on the actual phone part of her mobile device, would even recognize that I shut it off for about a week and a half. And this is the generation of kids that are coming in through our school. Think about the device that you have with you right now, whether it's a computer, a laptop, a tablet, a mobile device. Think about that thing that you have, that shiny new object that you're playing with right now. To a kid who's 5 years old, 7 years old, what you have in your hand is going to be their Commodore 64 in the future. It's going to be their Apple IIe. It's going to be their StarTAC. When they're in their 20s, they're going to go to thrift stores and find your phone that you have and bring it and put it up on a shelf in their hipster apartment because it's going to be cool to have one of these things. This is the generation of kids that are coming into our schools. Now, I'm not saying that this generation of students are any different than we are. You can find lots of articles, you can find lots of information that talk about this new generation of kids. They're wired differently, they think differently, they can multitask. They can't multitask. They do 4 things poorly. But how they learn has changed. This is a picture of my 11-year-old sitting on the couch next to me. I'm sitting trying to be a good American, lazy Sunday American watching my football. I'm watching football, and I turn to my left, and I see this. This is my 11-year-old who on one machine is playing Minecraft, and I know that you guys know what I'm talking about. And on the other machine, he's watching videos learning how to play Minecraft. And he's not multitasking because there's a football game in front of him and he has no idea what's going on. This is what he's doing. A month after, this is this football season. I would say it's this second half of the football season. A month after this, we're walking through Home Depot because I have to buy light bulbs for our Christmas party. And my 11-year-old is yammering on about something. He's apologizing for something. And I'm trying to pay attention to him and pick out light bulbs at the same time. And he's going on about how he's trying to apologize because he broke into the home server and he took about 300 megs of space and he created a little walled garden for himself and for him and Cole and his 2 friends, and he swears nobody else has the password, and everything else is, he knows that the FTTPS settings are all set, and I turn to him and I'm like, what are you talking about? He broke in and hacked into our home server so that he can create his own Minecraft world. They're teaching each other. They're learning from the web. And this is a picture of one of the videos that he created a month after that. So he's gone full circle. He went from not knowing how to play Minecraft to teaching himself how to play Minecraft, to collaborating with others on playing Minecraft, and now he's creating videos teaching other kids how to play Minecraft. Learning does not happen between Monday and Friday, between this time and that time, between this month and that month. This generation of kids are growing up consistently learning all the time. And so they need a different set of skills, but they're no different than the set of skills that we always needed, that we use in our everyday lives. Gordon McKenzie, one of my favorite books, he wrote a book called Orbiting the Giant Hairball. And he talks about how we can release our inner creativity. And the whole idea was that we're all creative geniuses. We just have to find a way to get to it. And he tells this great story about how when he used to go into schools, because he was a metal sculptor, he would go in and talk about his art. And he would sit there with first graders, and he would open up his thing, and he'd show all these different pieces of art, and he would say, I'm an artist, among other things. How many of you are also artists? And in first grade, all the hands went up. And then in second grade, he would do the same thing, and about half the kids raised their hand. And then third grade, about 10 kids would raise their hand. Till he got to sixth grade, and he would ask the question, how many artists do we have in the room? And one kid would raise their hand. So one of two things is happening. Either we as humans lose our creativity by the time we get to sixth grade, or we're doing something to that creativity. And we need to bring that back. We're in Florida, and I'm sure lots of you play golf. I live in Phoenix, and there's a golf course. I know there's a golf course in walking distance in Phoenix. I'm sure the same is true here in Florida. And one of my favorite golf sayings is that every shot that doesn't go in is a bad shot. So even if you hit it right down the middle of the fairway at 300 yards, your next shot could be a bad shot. And so golf is about iteration. And what I like about the word iteration is that it implies failure, but with the opportunity to continue and do again. We always talk about teaching our kids that they need to learn how to fail. And the reality is that what we need to teach them how to do is how to iterate, how to learn from an experience and do it again. And they're doing this already. We just need to take advantage of the things that they're learning how to do as kids, because experimentation and iteration is part of what they do on a daily basis. We also have to take advantage of that curiosity. We no longer have to be the black boxes of knowledge standing in front of the classroom, because the information is at our fingertips. We live in an abundance of information. When my kid asks me a question that I know he can look up, my response to him is, I work for a search engine. I am not actually the search engine. Go find out. And then I follow up. What did you learn? Well, what does it mean? What's the impact of that? Well, what would happen if that happened today? We need to take that curiosity and expand it. And we need to teach them how to look for that information, how to vet information, how to make sense of it. Because the truth is, most of us are terrible searchers. We didn't learn how to do this. We just kind of picked it up. And here's a little test for yourselves to use as you use your favorite search engine, which obviously I hope is Google. But if you're typing a question mark into your search box, you're a bad searcher. And if we're bad searchers, what are we teaching our kids? How do we take advantage of that curiosity that comes naturally and expand on that? How do we deepen that? And then collaboration is the new way that we work. And school is a very individualized sport where students get a grade and students take a class and students graduate, and then we push them out the door and we say, good luck, go work with others. Imagine as a teacher, you hand out a test, and at the end of that test, two kids come up to you holding the test together, and they say, we did this together. What would your reaction be? Why is collaboration cheating? Because in my world, I can't imagine going to my leadership team and saying, I did this all by myself. Nope, no, I got help from no one. I wouldn't last very long. We have to build collaboration into our learning environments. And then we need digital leaders. I like the phrase digital citizens, but my kid's already a digital citizen. What I want to teach them is how to be a digital leader. So what they share online, what they post online, the digital footprint that they create is the reason why they're successful in life. It's the reason why they go to college. It's the reason why they have a good reputation online, not the reason they don't. And so teaching them how to be good digital citizens is important, but teaching them how to be digital leaders is even more important. So that they're not consuming the web, they're using the web to create. And we're in this paradigm shift where the web is affecting what we do in education, whether we like it or not. You don't have to look very far to see some of the things that are going on in this space. If you think about what's going on in higher education, if you're involved in higher education, or you have family that's involved in higher education and they're on the administrative side, I guarantee you that they had a meeting this week, or will have a meeting this week about MOOCs. Because we're at this point where we're having discussions about being able to provide high quality, low cost education, and we have an ever expanding, ever developing web, and access to machines and devices that can get us there, and a generation of kids that are comfortable living in this space. And so we're starting to see in higher education what higher education is going to look like. And I'm excited about that. As someone who has a 20-year-old in college, I'm starting to see it already. In her 2 years, half her classes are probably inside a classroom. And she's already kind of determining what the rest of her college career is going to look like. I can't imagine what college is going to look like for my 11-year-old. And in K-12, you guys are at the cutting edge of creating what these new learning models are going to look like. Whether we're talking about distance learning, which you guys do really well here in Florida, or whether we're talking about flipped classrooms or blended learning or project-based learning, the teachers who are working in this space are building the cutting-edge learning environments that we need to create for our students. And this is really exciting, because at the end of the day, what we need to do is create and develop great teachers, and our professional development has to be focused not on how do we use technology in the classroom, but how do we utilize the web as a learning platform? How do we do project-based learning? How do we do these flipped classrooms and all this other content that's available out there for us? How do we put all this together so that we can build the skills that kids need so that they can be successful in their careers? And more than ever, a teacher is the most important person in the classroom. It's not the technology. It's not even access to the web. I've had a great career. I'm going to continue to have a great career. I've met some unbelievable people in my life. And my 4th grade teacher, and my 8th grade teacher, and my 6th grade teacher are still some of the most important people I've ever had in my life. And when we think about how that applies in the real world, it's still the same. We look for great teachers in our lives. Whether we work with a colleague, or whether we have a great boss, or we have a great manager, we're always looking for great teachers. And so developing great teachers is going to be absolutely critical. Because when we look at the web as a learning platform, we can see some of these changes already starting to happen. For example, at Harvard School in Vermont, we have a school that we're working with there that's already building digital citizenship into their curriculum, where they're collaborating together, where their experiences are working together. Or whether or not we have a school like Leiden that is building that environment for students where they're learning on the web, where the principal, Jason there, our friend, who says, I see the web and I see the advantages that it's bringing my students, and I want to take that power and bring it into our schools. Or schools focused on building digital leaders, but not only for their students, but for their teachers, so that they're all working and collaborating and learning at the same time. And one of my favorite stories, because I was just there in December, Richland 2 School District in Columbia, South Carolina. I had the privilege and honor of going there and talking to about 1,000 kids. Talking to them about their careers and what they want to focus on, and asking them what problems they wanted to solve. Right? We don't ask kids enough, what problem do you want to solve? When you grow up, what problem not what do you want to be when you grow up? What problem do you want to focus on? And so I had the great chance of going and talking to these kids, and then walking through their elementary school, and walking into a classroom, and it took me 2 or 3 minutes to figure out where the teacher was. Because they have these classrooms where kids are all working together, and you have some kids working over here and a teacher working with one kid over there, and creating this collaborative, personalized learning environment for these students and giving them the opportunity to give feedback. And so we're starting to see this in lots and lots of schools, and I bet you here in this room we have another 100, 200, 300, 500 examples of how we're starting to see this. This combination of how do we utilize the web, and how do we utilize technology, and how do we utilize the skills that kids need, and how do we put all that together to create these fascinating learning environments. And there's a bazillion websites and a bazillion pieces of content out there that you can start looking at. I just pulled a couple out as examples that I find fascinating. Duolingo here, that I discovered recently, is teaching language skills in a collaborative way, in a crowdsourcing way, and they're having students learning, I think there are up to 6 different languages around the world, and they're teaching them how to learn, they're teaching them a language, and at the same time, these students that are learning these new languages are translating content into those languages in a crowdsourcing way. So we're doing 2 things at the same time. A kid is learning a new language, or a student, because it could be anyone, a student is learning a new language, and at the same time, creating content in different languages so that more students can learn more things. And I have teachers asking me to turn off Google Translate because they're trying to teach a language in their class. This is just one example of the power of the web and what we can do with this. Or at Google Wonders, where we're bringing the modern and ancient world to our fingertips. I don't know if you had a chance to check this out. This is a dangerous place, because I brought my 11-year-old there, and we started looking through ancient Europe. And guess where I have to go this summer on our family vacation? Because we can bring the world to our kids right to their fingertips. Or you know what Newton is doing with personalized learning, where they're taking the data of what students are doing and creating the right problem for them at the right time. So that when you log into Newton and you're in there and you sign up and you try to log in, Newton might say to me, Jamie, listen, I know you want to do your algebra stuff right now, but you know, you're not very good at algebra at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Why don't you come back at 6:30? Go work on something else. And again, this is just one example of what we can do. And the important thing to keep in mind here is that we're just getting started with the potential and the power of the web and what we can do with it. If you haven't visited the Chrome experiment, go check out what some of the things that are going on the cutting edge of web development with some of the best open source tools that are available out there. And we're just getting started with this. And as teachers, we have to recognize, and I'm giving you permission, I'm letting you go from thinking about the fact that you think you have to know everything. Because you don't. We're the generation that the web was introduced to us in our generation. We were sitting at our computers, minding our own business, and somebody came in and said, hey, you should check out this new website called google.com. And you went, okay, I'll check it out. Hey, you should check out this thing called amazon.com. Oh, you can buy stuff. I will go to Amazon. Oh, I will bookmark that. I now have all 8 websites. We thought we could manage it all, didn't we? We could put them in our bookmark folder. And it just kept coming at us. We used to be able to buy books that described websites. But it just kept coming at us. And it's okay not to know. It's okay not to know everything that's out there. You can, right now, as soon as we're done here this morning, turn to the person next to you and say, what's the best education website you're using? Or what do you think is cool? And you will find out a new one. But we also have to keep in mind that this generation of kids that are coming through our school system don't think that way, because they're living with that fire hose in their face. They don't know any better. When you explain, and I've seen this firsthand with lots of kids, but when you say to a kid, when one kid says to another kid, hey, have you checked out Minecraft? The kid doesn't pretend they know what Minecraft is. They say, no, what is it? And they're curious about it. So we need to be curious. We need to bring back our creativity. We need to be able to say and let go and say, we're not going to know everything. We're going to use a bunch of different tools, and you might be using one tool one week and a different tool the next week, and as long as we're focused on the right objectives and what it is that we want to do, it shouldn't really matter that much. And none of this is easy. These are mountain-moving changes that are required. We need to redefine the structure of what education looks like in this new world that we live in. Because we are in that web revolution period. We're at the beginning of it. If there is a more exciting time in history that I would want to be part of, I haven't discovered it yet. We are at that cutting edge. We are just at the beginning of that web revolution and how that's going to define what education looks like in the future. Before I go, I wanted to make sure that you knew that we were here. We have a big Google team, so we are real people. You can touch and feel us. You can talk to us. I once had someone, I've been at Google for 7 years. Someone came up to me and said, oh, you work at Google? I didn't know people worked at Google. But we're real, and we're here, so come visit us in our booth, 1109. We're having sessions every 30 minutes from educators who are using our tools in different ways, so come learn a couple of different ways that you can use some of the tools. We also have our Google Plus page where you can reach us anytime. And also our website where all our information is and all our resources are, where you can watch videos, and you can watch webinars that are available to you. And we have all this information down in the booth, so come grab some of those handouts. And the last thing I want to kind of talk about here is that today we launched the Google Science Fair for 2013. And we just announced this is hot off the presses. And we're excited about this. I actually got the chance to go see the Google Science Fair, the final, the winners, 2 years ago, and it was just fascinating. I was sitting at the table with one of the winners, just fascinating to see those skills that we talked about, the curiosity, the creativity, the problem solving, the passion that these kids have. And this is a global project, and we're really, really excited to be participating again in the Google Science Fair for 2013. The submission deadlines are there. You can come get more information about these as well. I promised my kids that I would not go to Disney World. So I am going to be done for today. And so I wanted to make sure that I described that. Thank you very much for your time. Go on, take the power of the web into your hands and see what you can do with it. Come visit us at the booth and have a great rest of the conference. Thank you.